A massive Toronto Maple Leafs signing is imminent as a report has come out revealing that the Toronto Maple Leafs and Jake McCabe have advanced in extension talks. And this report says the signing is incoming. Stay tuned for that in this episode. As well as the Toronto Maple Leafs, they made an interesting move. So stay tuned for that and much more. But before we get into it, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you're a part of the 70 or so percent who aren't subscribed to the channel, we're getting very close to 13,000 subscribers. And our goal is to hit it for opening night next Wednesday. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy the daily Leafs content and want to help us out towards that goal. But Darius, a lot of news to discuss today. A report came out surrounding Jake McCabe, and we also have some breaking news as they made a interesting move surrounding one of their prospects. So tons to go over today, and let's just dive right into it. Obviously, Jake McCabe is going to play a huge factor into the Toronto Maple Leafs, not only this upcoming season, but really into the future of their blue line alongside Chris Tanev and OEL over the next handful of seasons when they're trying to compete. And the Maple Leafs agree with that as they're trying to lock him down. And Nick Kypreos says that McCabe is close to done, probably before the opener on Wednesday. Mentions a 6x5 or a 6x5.2. And we'll dive into some other things. Elliot Friedman also had some things to say as well. But Darius, it seems that Jake McCabe and the Toronto Maple Leafs are closing in on a deal in the 30 or so total $1 million range here. And this would lock up their blue line for the foreseeable future with OEL, Morgan Riley, and of course, Jake McCabe and Chris Tanev as well.
Yeah, Nick Kypreos had some interesting thoughts on this as well, which we'll get to in a minute, in terms of the dollar amount too, because a lot of people are looking at the years that are reportedly offered and being like, what is that, right? That is pretty preposterous, puzzling, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's to get the number down. We saw it with Chris Tanev, right? We got the number down a little bit because Brad Living offered him more years. Will he play all those years? We don't know at this point. Jake McCabe might not either. This contract might take him to retirement at this point because of the caliber of hockey he plays. But you know what? If you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, you know what you have in this player. He's a good, valuable asset. He can win you a Stanley Cup. He's the type of player and defenseman that you can win a Stanley Cup with. I could see a lot of teams, winning a Stanley Cup with a player like this because of the way he plays, and he's hard-nosed, and I think he's going to thrive under Craig Berube's system as well. So I think it would be in their best interest to get him locked up. It doesn't matter when. I think, this is not the Mitch Marner situation per se, because it won't really rely on the type of season he has, because we know what we have in Jake McCabe. But I think it's probably likely going to get done before the season starts, because while Craig Berube has been busy with, the prospects and figuring out lines, it seems like Brad Living has been busy figuring out who's going up, who's going down, and who is going to get signed, because it sounds like they're making some progress on Matthew Nyes as well, and that might happen sooner rather than later. So sounds like this could happen before opening night. Sounds like both parties want to get it done, but it just depends what exactly the dollar amount is because of how many years are offered. Obviously, I think the Leafs would love to go shorter, but if it gets the dollar amount down, they can go longer and put him on Robidas Island for retirement. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, they got to lock this guy up. He's a great player.
Yeah, and the thing is now you're thinking about maybe 3 years down the line, you're going to have an aging or borderline older Jake McCabe, an old Chris Tanev, old not, talking about given their hockey primes, and an older OEL as well. So you really got to win, especially if you sign this deal. You got to win over the next handful of seasons, and that's kind of what the Leafs are positioning themselves to do right now. And again, it's close to done, probably before the opener. And some fans' thoughts here, maybe a year or two too long. McCabe is definitely a player that I want as a member of the Leafs secondary and peripheral core. Get it done. And again, the number amount is a little scary, but again, according to Kypreos, they're working on an extension. And some more details here. Talks are going well, and it could get done. And he thinks that $5 million over 6 years is ultimately what gets it over the finish line, which is kind of what you're looking for if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs, if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, because you don't want to let him either walk in free agency or do anything like that, because we know how hard it is to get good defensemen in this league. And I mean, Brad Living in his second year as the GM of the Leafs did a great job in acquiring OEL and Chris Tanev, granted on some expensive contracts, but that's the price these days of defense. And we're seeing guys like Joel Edmondson get crazy contract, even Ilya Lyubushkin getting a lot of expensive contracts. So even though it may seem expensive on the surface, I think at this point, anything to lock up a very solid blue line here is going to be important, especially with how much firepower the Toronto Maple Leafs have on the forward position, the best goal scorer in the league, and things like that. So it makes all the sense in the world to me. And even Elliot Friedman stepped in as well, saying one thing I did hear is potentially Jake McCabe extension incoming. So tons of things going on right now, but 6 by $30 million gets it done total.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you look at the years and the number, I think we're a little bit spoiled and our perspective is kind of skewed on this because he only makes $2 million on the Leafs because the Chicago Blackhawks retained salary on him for the duration of the contract. So obviously we're looking at McCabe like, wow, he fits in perfectly on this team. He only makes 2 million, but he's due for a raise. And honestly, it's not that big of a raise from what he's making right now in his total contract. So if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs with his age, he's not that old, right? He still has a couple years here that he can give you a really good hockey. So if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're probably going to go that route again, where, give them a few more years where it might end up being a problem down the road, but you get that number each year a little bit lower, which could help them to sign some other guys like Matthew Nyes. There's a ton of guys they got to start looking at, right? Because obviously Mitch Marner's up too. So they have to start thinking about the team next year as well. Obviously they're gearing up for this year, but you got to look into the future a little bit when you're signing contracts like this and make sure that you'll be okay. But yeah, like I keep saying, I mean, Jake McCabe, he is a great part of this team. He could wear a letter, right? If there was enough letters to go around, he could wear an assistant captain letter. And I mean, everything he brings to the table is exactly what the Leafs need more of. And the defense core is aging at this point, and they will in a couple of years. That is looking tough, but you can get out from these contracts, especially if some Marlies start to come up and surprise as well. And you got Ben Danford kind of waiting in the sidelines as well. So we'll see what happens then. But for right now, you're in win now mode, and this is a guy who can help you.
Yeah, and he's a guy that can definitely help get it done. You look at his stats, 28 points over 73 games. And again, you mentioned it, a very good trade with the Blackhawks. We got spoiled in the sense of he's still making, obviously not 6x5, but he's making a decent number. It's just that it's kind of an illusion to a lot of us because of the actual retained amount of salary that the Blackhawks have here. And some more interesting things, just a full quote before we move on. The one thing I did hear is potentially a McCabe extension incoming, maybe before the season starts. I heard talks were real good. Now still maybe debatable on how much term, and maybe that still might fluctuate the AAV, but I'm thinking right now that he have no problem next season making $30 million over 6 years. And I wouldn't say anybody watching this video would have a problem with anyone making $30 million over 6 years. I think if Jake McCabe would definitely take that. And again, you think about it, even with Matthew Nyes, like a lot of the guys are starting to get extended now. And there's a world where Matthew Nyes does get extended before the start of this season as well. So they have a lot of different things ongoing right now. We heard, again, we made a video on it a week or two ago when Elliot Freeman came out and said the exact same thing without giving the term, that the Toronto Maple Leafs are working on an extension with Jake McCabe, which is something we covered at the time. You can see it right here. Freeman said, I believe they've had some conversation with McCabe, about extending him. I think he's perfect for them. He's exactly the kind of player they need. I think exactly what player need. I don't know where this is going to go, but I do believe they've had some conversations. And that was a week or two ago, and now you have Kypreos saying it's close to done. Darius, we've kind of seen this show before. It usually starts with Friedman kind of giving some hints and then other reporters coming in, and then it usually happens. So I wouldn't be surprised if this happens over the next few days. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. We have some other things to discuss, which is breaking news that just dropped. So Maple Leafs forward Nick Abruzzese has been placed on waivers for the purpose of re-assignment to the Marlies. And again, he was not someone that we thought was going to make the team or anything like that. This is kind of something we expected to happen, but he's been placed on waivers. Darius, any thoughts on this move as we're now getting really close, 6 days away from opening night? They've still yet to make the move and the subsequent move for Max Pacioretty. But I guess this is step one of the dominoes to fall over the next handful of days. But Nick Abruzzese is placed on waivers.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised about this. I don't think he was going to make the team. But the one thing that's interesting now is he has to go through waivers, right? So obviously the purpose of putting him through waivers is to sign him to the Toronto Marlies, and they think he's going to have a good season with the Marlies. And he's still a great player, right? We saw some flashes a couple of years ago that, he got into some games, even over the last couple of years, right? He's had some moments, but it's pretty interesting. He's still a very good player. I wonder if another team takes a look at him and just claims him off waivers. And that, I don't know if it's a bad thing for the Marlies because they have a lot of young talent coming in now that they could probably use as well. But it's going to be interesting to watch over the next 24 hours if he does get claimed, because this wasn't an issue before, but now he has to go through waivers. And obviously they want to keep him in the organization. They see something there, and he's played time in the NHL as well. So he could be a call-up option if there's some injuries and contract situations call for it. But I am interested to see over the next day if somebody claims him.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. We'll definitely keep you up to date with that, because even though it was kind of expected, it's interesting because this is a guy at one point that we thought was going to have some sort of impact at the NHL level. Maybe he still will, but it's going to start with a potentially a waiver assignment. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Do you want to see the Maple Leafs extend Jake McCabe? And let us know what your thoughts are on the contract that Nick Kypreos said was imminent. Let us know. See you guys tomorrow. Later today, maybe.